This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. I have Eduardo on Zoom. I've been feeling like sort of that annoying girlfriend that you've sort of got to put up with about 7 unanswered texts. Edward, come on, mate, can I come down and do a little bit? And then I saw Matchroom got the bit. Shout out Jamie Ward, done a good bit. Then Coogan done a good bit, and I thought, oh. So then I
I
went to
just have to, I just have to keep you, I just have to keep you humble. And I've got to, I have to stay loyal at the same time, obviously, to the company, number one. The OG Coogan come in. I was trying to get you both in yesterday, but I could only slot one in. So, shows you're not quite there yet, boy.
No. Got to keep me on my toes. Edward, I've got to say, mate, I messaged Jamie after that interview because the Matchroom one dropped first. Man said Jordan tracksuit and whoever the barber is, right? This is the best I thought the best I saw your trim was in Detroit when what was the geezer's name in Detroit? Can you remember? Master.
Oh yeah. Down in the Dominican barber.
That was it. But whoever's done the trim this time round, along with the jacket yesterday, I thought fair play, mate.
Coming from you, that means absolutely nothing.
Brilliant.
No, I'm all right actually. I'm actually in machine mode at the moment. Machine mode.
Do you think you'll start taking a bit of a decline when the travels start?
No, because these last couple of weeks that I've had off, I've just geared myself up to just take over the boxing world for the back end of the year. I'm going to work my bollocks off every single day, every single weekend, whilst training twice a day and eating 220 grams of protein per day. Let's fucking go. But yeah, we got some big things we're working on outside of just a little cut of personal little missions for my well-being. So keep you posted, but that is why I'm looking unbelievable.
I suppose with the men's health thing on top, you just got to keep yourself in order, everything in check, right?
There's a few things going on that I have to be absolutely for, but you'll find out.
I'm sure your ego will just inflate through that.
I don't know what you mean.
Edward, I want to ask you, I don't know if anyone asked you yesterday, but it was the funniest, I experienced the funniest day of my life last Tuesday. I'm down on my phone 1 minute, the next thing, John Fury's got a table in the air, he's humping the air. What did you make of it all?
I think it's very watchable. I mean, part of me worries a little bit about our sport. And part of me, I'm kind of in the middle, aren't I? Like, I'm not what do they call these people? Gen Z, whatever, like this younger, yeah. And I'm not old school, like my old man, like Warren, whatever. So I know, especially having kids, I know what they're talking about. I know what they want to see. I look at it from our business. I look at it from a boxing and the community level, from a grassroots, trying to, I don't know, set a standard. I don't know really. But then I think just get off your high horse and just say, listen, it is what it is. It does massive numbers. I have to say, like, normally, I think some of that sort of YouTube stuff, press conferences is awful and cringe, and like we really need to get a grip of it. But the other day was just, it's high level, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about major stars, KSI, Logan, massive stars, even Tommy Fury now, and John Fury. And I did, from my interviews yesterday where I mentioned that I've been watching the Furies on Netflix. Yeah, people can't believe that I owned up to that. I ain't bothered. 44 years old. I really don't care what I tell you. But even John Fury creasing me up in that. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think we need characters. We need personalities, and I think we can learn. If we're going to learn something from YouTube, boxing, misfits, whatever, it is we must keep the entertainment level in our sport, because that's what that's what's going to do numbers. That's what people want to see. And when I met Billy Joe Saunders the other day, I said this to Coogan. Like, I feel like we need characters like Billy Joe Saunders. Love him, hate him, controversial, turned a corner, whatever. But there's a story, isn't there? And I just think we've got to do a good job. The fighters have got to do a good job to push that story and that narrative. It can't just be, it's like Brandon Scott the other week. You know, I know he got a bit of stick, but you ain't going to forget Brandon Scott. I mean, you might think he's a little bit cringe coming in a Spider-Man outfit to a press conference, but you ain't going to forget.
No, precisely.
Now, a huge amount of people will love him. Many people will think he's a bit of a knob, right? But who cares? Be yourself, have fun. It's a serious sport, but I think we can learn a little bit from that. And like, you know, John Fury was just hilarious. And whatever you want to say about them, they're huge personalities. And that's a massive event. Massive event. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's on our platform. So if we can ram in a little 700 or 1 million pay-per-view buys, we've got 1 million new customers and subscribers on DAZN. Fucking great. Let's hope we can push them into professional boxing as well, grow the viewership, grow the profile, grow the exposure for our fighters and DAZN.
Let me ask you on the sort of actual side of this. The other spectrum is this Logan Paul, Dillon, Danis stuff. I don't know why I've gone straight into this, but why not, eh?
Still do numbers for you.
This Dillon Danis trolling is next level.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's like if you're Logan in this situation, Edward, what are you doing? Because personally, after being photographed with everyone in Hollywood and then some of the questionable videos that have been seen, are you trusting a woman like that?
I don't know. I mean, that's not really a question for me, but it's very difficult. Like, this guy obviously is not going to stop till the fight, post-fight, whatever. But you got to be very strong mentally, I think, in these kind of situations where, you know, will it get to you? Yeah, of course it will get to you. I haven't really read all the posts that Dillon Danis has been making, in all honesty. But I understand, I've seen a few of them and I understand where he's going with it. But I think the only thing is, the difference is the kind of people that we're talking about. Because if this was in boxing and someone was doing that, I don't think it would end well.
Yeah, no.
So it's this new world, isn't it? Like, really, you shouldn't really do that or be allowed to do that. But it's the internet and it's new age. So let's see if he turns up. Hope he does. Good luck to Dillon Danis. Good luck to Logan Paul. I'm looking forward to the event. You know, I think KSI Tommy Fury is a decent fight. Like, you know, I respect KSI for taking the challenge.
You expect Tommy to win?
Probably, yeah. But I've written off KSI before, so good luck to them all.
Let's go into it. Robert Helenius with an adverse analytical finding. I know sort of a lot of this you would have touched on in your interviews yesterday, so I'm going to try and keep it as different as I can considering the circumstances. I'll let you explain a little bit about sort of your drug testing pool that you want to do on a Matchroom side of things. I know that will have financial consequences shorthand, but also this is, I believe, the third test this year of a boxer to do with Clomifene. I was speaking to Gareth A. Davies afterwards, and he said that Robert Helenius spoke to him on Fight Week and said, if you fail a test in Finland, then you're doomed. No one will ever look at you ever again. It's sort of like the sin of all sins. There's more and more research regarding Clomifene and this sort of cross-contamination and stuff like that. We know that in Mexico there was a problem with red meat and clenbuterol, I think it was. Is there something in this substance that we're missing and that we need to...
I mean, that's a question, obviously, for VADA, not me. All I can tell you is that when Conor Benn failed his test for Clomifene, I was contacted pretty much immediately by the UFC at a very senior level to tell me that this had happened. You know, this was becoming a regular occurrence for contamination. As the science has gone on, and I don't want to start talking about food contamination because people just think it's just an excuse. It's come to light that, yes, there is a very high chance that that is possible in the world we live in today. Throw in Robert Helenius's test. And again, it's difficult because I don't know Robert Helenius. I've met him 3 or 4 times. the letter that he wrote to Anthony Joshua a couple of days ago is like nothing I've ever seen in this instance, which is just, I want you to know I have never, would never, ever take a performance-enhancing substance. I would certainly never do that in a fight with you or ever. I have so much respect for you. You know, again, we get the privilege of seeing the substances, the levels, everything. If I don't even really want to stick up for him because he's not my fighter and it's not my job, but I probably believe him. But again, not for me to say, I'm just giving you my honest gut feeling. But is there a problem with contamination in clomifene? According to scientists and according to other major organizations, yes. But we're yet to see that, and it remains on the ban list. So there's nothing you can do about it until that is, I guess, proven. But we'll see how many of these findings occur for that substance.
Anthony Joshua, I believe, I don't know this, but sort of just with everything that happened with Dillian White, and then obviously he had the Miller stuff in the past, and now this. What's his mentality like? I know he sent you that text saying thank you for the sort of the drug testing that you guys are doing, but in terms of being a fighter, and it just does he almost feel a little bit like everyone's on it, or what's his?
He just said, "Oh wow, you really got to be taking something to try and beat me." You know, don't forget this is two people for the same fight day. Yeah. I mean, that's like, you know, I can't say he's really thought that deeply into it, to be honest with you. And you know, one of the questions yesterday from Coogan, and I get it, it's like, and people are a little bit naive to think that you can do a test at, I don't know, 10 or 11 o'clock on a Friday night and think you're going to get it back from the VADA laboratory in time for fight night, less than 18 hours later. It's just not going to happen. And then people are even more naive to say, well, what's the point in testing then on fight week? Well, the answer is to find out if someone has taken something. You can take something the night before, you can take something a couple of hours before to try and improve your performance. So we can't just stop testing because we're not going to get the results back in time. You'd rather find out, even if it was after the fact. The ideal aim is always to try and make sure if someone does have an illegal substance in their body, to make sure they don't step foot in the ring. But, you know, we don't control the process from sample to laboratory, obviously. In terms of the testing pool that we're looking to put together, I think it's more in line with a pool that for every single event, once you enter a contract for that event, you are in the testing pool, you know? So it's like every fighter on the card is part of the random testing program.
Wow.
And I just feel like that's the only way. Again, it's hugely expensive, and it does piss me off that no one else gets the questions. You know, is there testing for Eubank v Smith this week? Is there testing for Frazer Clarke against David? Now the promoter will say, yeah, you can, but come on, we all know. Like, ask them the question: when was the last time they were tested? Maybe not at all in the build up to this fight, and especially when you talk about international fighters. I mean, Tete is a great example, right? International fighters only get tested by UKAD either a day or two before the fight or on fight night.
Yeah.
So when Frank Warren talks about, oh, I'm all for the safety of the fighters, etc., you let someone get into the ring with a highly, highly dangerous substance in their body because you didn't have testing for Tete, just like you didn't have testing for Baluta, who also wouldn't have been tested, you know? So, and I've used Baluta a couple of times, not because, you know, of any particular reason, just be another example of it's actually, you're not actually looking at safety of fighters because you're not testing the fighters or the opponents. So we're going to do something big, to be honest, and we're going to do something that's never been done before. We've just actually finished a board meeting about half an hour ago where, you know, my old man sort of said, how much is this going to cost? And It's just something I feel we need to do for the sport. I hope it's embraced, and I hope it's replicated by all the other promoters.
Eddie, in terms of sort of, I know you do this drug testing and stuff like that, but how would it operate? Would it be a camp long thing for all of your guys? How regular
Yeah,
would
I
it
think it's
be?
difficult with fighters coming in and out of contracts. Like, it's when you sign with Matchroom, you're on this program, but obviously you've got fighters that would end their contract, they have to come off the program. I think it's much more simple of when you sign your bout agreement for the fight, which is generally 8 to 12 weeks before, you enter the program. And everybody on that card will be random tested by VADA. There could be something where we look at 365 years around, I don't know, but that's more difficult to police and monitor. It's almost easier to attach within an existing bout contract. But listen, it's early stages, but there's a number of ways we're looking at, and obviously we have to also make sure the commission's on board, that if there is an adverse finding, because we don't want to be left with a situation where, we can't run a disciplinary hearing to find out what we're going to do with an adverse finding. That's got to be by the commission or the governing body. But anyway, this is getting a little bit boring, but I think it's something you're going to be hearing a lot from us over the next few weeks and months to implement it.
All right, on the topic of Frank Warren, then, to spice things up, I know you made a couple of the small hall promoter comments. Frank Warren hit back and said, "How many Birmingham arenas can we drop into this stadium? How many Birmingham arenas have been curtained off and are only half sold out that we can drop into this arena?" And speaking of small hall fights, we put on fights at York Hall because that's the home of traditional boxing, bringing fighters through. I did it with Nigel Benn, Ricky Hatton in small halls. All the fighters over the years, you bring them through, you blood them, you bring them through. Next generation, 30 years of age. Yafai is a good fighter, by the way, but 30 years of age. That's the next generation, you're telling me. Get me out my box. If the next generation's 30, then I'm 40, a young promoter. Response?
I don't know. Listen, I mean, I leave Frank Smith for him these days.
I was going to say, yeah, there's been a back.
No,
I
don't. I've got nothing to say to Frank. Listen, I think everybody knows why you do your call, because it's cheap. We have a look and a feel in terms of production, in terms of how we like an event to look. I think we sold 3,500 tickets in Birmingham. Obviously, you can sell 1,200 in York Hall, probably 1,600 that night. But I'm not going to get into a back and forward with Frank. I'm kind of past that level now, so I'm going to leave it to Frank Smith. Honestly, and I think it's great. I just saw someone sent me Ben Shalom's interview today, having a pop at Frank Smith, and we were just laughing about it in the board meeting. I was going, "She's great," because I can just sit back and laugh at it all. And I saw Warren on the other day with the cyborg, but I am just going mad, and the T-boy, and you got Andy Ailing coming for it. I think, to be honest with you, like, sometimes gets a little bit personal, but in general, just like the Misfits, I think it's like, look at what we've done for Ben Shalom. Like, we've really massively helped his profile. I think even the fact I've just mentioned his name there, he should be PayPaling me a few quid, really. But I'm out of the beef. I'm out of the beef market. It's over to Frank Smith, the future of our company, to respond to all these boys. And, all I said was, it's a bit like, I said in the queue, a bit like when Frank starts talking about HGH and test, like, he doesn't know what he's talking. He doesn't do any testing. He's not involved in any drug testing. So it's like someone's given him a couple of lines about something and he's just run with it. And until you want to start paying to improve the safety of fighters by administering additional layers of testing, don't comment, because you're not really doing it. And Ben Shalom, Frank Smith, Frank Warren. I'll leave them to Frank Smith. I'm just flying, like above the clouds. And you're just sort of looking down there. That's where I see you. That's where I'll just go, hello.
Happy and good energy off you, Edward.
Exactly. I don't want. There's no beef for me. You're not going to see me popping blood vessels, going fucking potty. I don't agree with everything Frank Warren says. I understand a lot. It's a bit like the Dubois stuff. He has to do his job.
Yeah.
He knows when he watches the replay back. Really, do you think if he represented Usyk, he wouldn't be screaming that was a low blow? But it's just the game we're in. It doesn't. He's got to do his job, and I respect that.
That sort of goes on to the next thing I was going to ask. I saw Ben Davison put out a tweet because at the time, I think us as boxing fans, well, not everyone, but I was very reactionary at the time. I thought it was legal, and then the more I sort of slept on it and then woke up and reviewed it, I thought, okay, probably was low. Ben Davison summed it up and said, look, if your team Dubois, then the shot's legal, and if your team Usyk, it's illegal. Frank Warren's lodging an appeal. Do you expect anything to be done?
No, not at all. I mean, but there's so many pictures on the internet that, like, after the impact and the punch rides up, there's another picture. If you watch where it lands, I think the biggest argument here is about where were Usyk's shorts, right? Now, that is not something to determine when a low blow lands. That's something to determine when the fighters come together before the first bell. The referee's job is to look at those shorts and say, bring those shorts down. And if he feels they're too high, just to say, your shorts are high, Daniel, just to let you know, that's legal, right? But you have to assume, because that was never said, that Usyk's shorts were on his navel, because that's the referee's job. Therefore, if the top of Usyk's shorts are on his navel, I don't really understand the argument of it not being a legal blow. I mean, the whole fist was on the shorts, number one. The bottom of the fist was, 8-10 inches below the top of the shorts. It's hitting on the protector. Now, I spoke to Alex Krassyuk last night. I think the doctor actually was inspected, and there was stuff from the actual low blow. It was low. We also know Usyk don't like it to the body. Look at the fight with Usyk against Joshua 2 in Saudi. Same ref, actually. Exactly the same shot, but with not as good a connection and probably less venom. And Usyk turned away, went down, and the ref said low blow. Pretty much, So whether this is something that really, if I really feel that Usyk's shorts are high, I'm saying it in the rules meeting. I'm screaming it in the corner. When they come together before the fight, I'm saying to the ref, look at those shorts. They're too high. I'm getting him to pull him down, or I want to acknowledge that that's not a low blow. But obviously that didn't happen. So when a punch lands below the belt line and hits the protector, it's a low blow. Yeah. But, I say it and people say, well, you would say that. Well, I ain't got much skin in the game. I thought, I've got my opinions on Dubois. And I used to represent Usyk, but I don't represent him anymore. I'm just telling you, I watched the fight and this is what I thought.
Just to be nosy, why were you speaking to Alex Krassyuk? Was it just a little catch-up?
Yeah, obviously, Hrgovic is the mandatory. And he's probably seen my interviews as well. They're probably getting a little bit of fire as well. He actually wanted to point out to me that the ring was not small. And this is another problem with hearsay on social media.
Saw that online, yeah.
Right, across the whole of social media was the ring's tiny. Even the BT pundits saying, can't believe the size of the ring. The ring was 20 foot by 20 foot inside the ropes.
Yeah.
But I did say to Alex Krassyuk today, I don't think Usyk looked himself. I don't think his feet looked as fast. And that's why I said he may have been injured, because I just thought, I just didn't think he looked as fluid and as sharp as he has done previously.
Well, you mentioned Hrgovic. I spoke to Kell on Sunday. He said, look, they want to get that fight made for December time. Is that realistic with you? We're now hearing that Saudi Arabian delegates are speaking to the Fury camp again, and they want to stage the 2 fights on one night in February. But then Hrgovic has been mandatory forever. I mean, you talk me through this sort of big
So,
old...
look, to get an exception, which is what Usyk would have to do to not fight Hrgovic, you cannot really have a fighter that has a fight coming up. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's very difficult. That fight will be ordered this week, in my opinion.
Okay.
Usyk against Hrgovic. So what happens now is Usyk will have the opportunity to request an exception to fight someone else. The only person that exception would be granted is probably Tyson Fury. But because Tyson Fury already has a fight scheduled, you can't ask for an exception, really. So I think we should just get it done. Get the fight made for December. We like Hrgovic's chances in that fight. He needs to definitely improve from his last couple of performances. But yeah, ready to make that fight.
How does this sort of coincide with your plans for Joshua Wilder in Saudi Arabia? We know that that's probably now January, February, and then obviously there's these talks about Fury Usyk on the same night. Is that what you're hearing that they want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing all sorts, of course. We're hearing, obviously, hearing's great. We also need the contract and the paperwork. Spoke to Shelley Finkel yesterday. Everyone's all in for that fight. We won't wait forever because Josh does want to fight. And if we can't get that fight done soon, he may fight in December internationally. But he wants to just go straight into the Deontay Wilder fight. But it's looking like a trip to Middle East maybe next week to try and nail this all down.
Just out of curiosity, this has sort of been something that's been spoke about for a while. I think in New York, Berlanga Quigley fight week, I said, is there a weird scenario where we could see like the Dillian White fight and the Joshua fight announced at the same time? Are you surprised by how long it's taking?
No, because I've been part of these fights before in the Middle East, and you're talking about a huge fight and a huge amount of money. But we're not concerned yet, but we also want to get a move on at the same time. And, you know, I can't make it clear enough. We're in for that fight. But there's a lot happening in that part of the world for sport in general. And again, this is a huge event, huge fight, huge money. So we will have the patience, but at the same time, Josh is enjoying the activity. He did want to fight 3 times this year, but he will do that if he can't get the Wilder fight guaranteed. Doesn't mean he, by the way, won't fight Wilder in February or March, but he may just choose not to wait from August to February or March. So, and the rumours are that Wilder may fight in October. So,
Edward, I'm going to rattle some off this weekend. Chris Eubank Jr. looks to get revenge over Liam Smith in the rematch. What do you think of it? It seems to have sort of gone under the radar a little bit, but maybe sometimes the case with these fights. Fight week has started now, media workout today, so sure the hype will build momentum. But
yeah, I'm sure. Look, sometimes you're part of these fights and they just don't catch fire. And also, don't forget, it's August. A lot of people are away. You know, the first fight wasn't competitive, wasn't close. The rematch wasn't requested by anybody other than Sky. But I'm sure, I know it's very quiet at the moment, but it's only Wednesday, but I'm sure they'll hype it up by Saturday. I think it's a very tough sell on pay-per-view. I really do, with everything that's been around lately and been asked to pay for this and asked to pay for that. And yeah, but I'm sure, you know, I expect Liam to win the fight, but I think he'll win it on points this time. I think Eubank will do better, but I don't see him winning the fight.
Liam Smith, we believe, is a free agent after this fight. Would you like to explore working with him? When you look at the middleweight division, it's nowhere near as strong as it has been in the past. Surely, you know, he spoke about having a good relationship with you and looking at his options elsewhere. Maybe could be someone to look at exploring and push him for those middleweight titles.
Yeah, I think Liam, if you ask Liam honestly who he'd like to sign with, it would be us. But not if we don't have any opportunities for him. And you know, he's at the stage in his career where he's going to take the best opportunities for him. So he should. He's a good fighter. He's a good bloke. We'd definitely be interested to work with him again. I'm sure those conversations will come, but let's see how he goes Saturday night.
Chris Eubank Jr., that fight with Conor Benn, always there, regardless of a loss this Saturday?
I mean, if he was to lose, it's how he loses. If it's a competitive fight and he loses on points, massive fight with Conor Benn. If he gets knocked out again early, tough sell. But, you know, there'll always be history. There'll always be spite. But I'm looking for Chris to at least be competitive in this fight. And I'd love to make that fight after.
Conor Benn's put out a video in training. I think he tagged Kell Brook. Any talks on that?
Loads of talks. I mean, I think, you know, Sky are trying to talk Kell into fighting Liam Smith, probably. I don't think that's the fight Kell wants. The fight Kell wants is Conor Benn. But we haven't made him an offer for that yet. We will look to do it. I think it's a great fight for December. Obviously, we'll probably make a decision this week as to if Conor fights in September. But if not, maybe he goes straight into the Kell Brook fight. And I think that's realistic for December, but we'll have to see.
Just from speaking to Conor, I know he is eager for that ring return. Ivan Redkach, I never get his name right. He put something out today, a post towards Conor. Conor said, "Can you be ready in 3 weeks?" That would be the Orlando card, which is already actually a quite a big card. Conor, I know ideally probably on that, I think with the whole UCAD situation, if he does fight in September, probably the favourite to land on that. Are there talks for this fight in 3 weeks' time?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've already spoken to the board about the possibility of him fighting, you know, even September the 30th, which those conversations are ongoing between the lawyers. He's allowed to, having been cleared of his suspension, to fight in America. So 23rd could be an option. Obviously, you'd be bolting him on a huge card, so it wouldn't be a massive fight, but he just wants to fight, you know, and he wants to prepare himself for that big fight in December, which we expect to happen in the UK. So there is a chance he fights on in September, but we'll have to see.
Jordan Thompson gets his chance September 30, as you just referenced. A great opportunity. I remember speaking to Brian Peters when it was potentially in the works. He was so excited. What a great chance for Jordan. I've spoke to him. He's well up for it. That card itself, how quickly did you have to put plans together? We know that they were talking about maybe doing the Breedis fight, but we believe the winner here will have to fight Maris Breedis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when Riakporhe pulled out of his World Championship fight, we wanted to make a fight quickly for Jaya because he'd been messed around on a couple of occasions. Firstly by Masternak, then by Riakporhe. Looks like he's been widely avoided. But Jordan Thompson, Alba Cruiserweight, now you've got Clarke, who's interestingly fighting for the IBF international title on that card against Vasyl Duka, which is a good fight. Jordan Thompson, shot of a lifetime. You know, he's 6'5". You know, he's a good-looking boy. He punches like a mule. He's got all the attributes to go on and be a star. But he's fighting the #1 cruiserweight in the world in Opetaia, the IBF, the Ring Magazine champ. But, you know, I love giving British fighters opportunities. And when Richard Riakporhe didn't want the opportunity to fight the best in the division, Jordan said, put me in. And it's a massive chance for him. He's a big underdog in the fight, but he can win that fight. And it's a really, really good fight between two good athletes. Obviously, Eddie Scotney defending her world title on the card, as I said, Clarke, the pro debut of Jimmy Sains, which is going to be making plenty of noise. Shannon Ryan, Rhiannon Dixon in a great fight against Anders for the European title. George Liddard, Maisie Rose Courtney. It's a big night in London. I'm looking forward to it.
Just lastly from me, Ben Shalom made some comments this afternoon. I've sort of fit it in with the whole Opetaia Riakporhe stuff. Eddie Hearn knows where those emails came from. We are looking for the best opportunities, and certain members of the team we felt from Jai Opetaia's comments that didn't feel right, weren't getting the right sort of aura out of it. I don't really know. I don't get it. That's why I'm asking you about these comments. I suppose promoters are constantly at each other, and it doesn't help because it causes even more show clashes. But we are to get the best opportunities for Richard Riakporhe and make him the best money.
Yeah, I mean, still doesn't answer the fact of why did you pull out the purse bid and then less than 24 hours later send a sneaky email behind my back saying, don't tell Eddie Hearn, but would you still like to make the fight? You were caught with, red-handed. And it's all right. Listen, you live and you learn. Like I said, I'm not going to make any negative comments to Ben Shalom. Frank Smith's the man to do that. And this is all part of the journey. It's nothing personal. But that's twice now you've pulled out of a purse bid on the day of the purse bid in a life-changing opportunity for your fighter because you were worried about boxer's position, not the position of the fighter, just your company's position with your broadcaster. It's not the way to represent the fighter. And, you know, my thoughts go out to Frazer Clarke and to Richard Riakporhe, because I know it's difficult for them, because they've had to take the brunt of it. And it hasn't been easy for Frazer. And, you know, he's a solid guy, mentally strong, and he'll be back. But, you know, he could have fought Fabio Wardley for a huge amount of money and put himself in an opportunity to headline huge cards for a lot of money. Richard Riakporhe could have fought Jai Opetaia in London, beaten him, become Ring Magazine champion, IBF champion, have massive unifications for 7-figure purses on box office. So unless you can replicate those chances, good luck. But I think it's just better just to, like, you know, just to say, look, I didn't have the money to bid, and I couldn't afford, for the sake of my own business, to lose that fight to DAZN. But it's not really in the best interest of the fighter, is it? But as I said, I've got no bad words for Ben Shalom or Frank Warren. I'm just going to enjoy Frank Smith tearing him a new one in your interview with him later.
Eduardo, we've got less than a minute left, it says, so I'm going to squeeze some Cirencester content out of you. We had the Phoenix Festival this weekend. I didn't go, obviously. Not really my thing, but everyone in Cirencester is waiting for Edward to arrive on the grand scene at some point. We had Wiley telling me he's going to come down last night. I think we could get a few faces down Bingham Hall, mate.
What on earth are you talking about?
The Cirencester debut of Edward Hearn.
Next week is my last week without a show, probably till Christmas. So if it's going to happen, it'll happen next week. But it's also very unlikely. I'm about to start another meeting. It's been a pleasure. And I'll catch you. You going to the media workout tomorrow?
No, I'm not. We've got the lads up in Manchester, so they will see you there tomorrow.
Bit below your pay grade, that one, is it?
Never. Edward, thank you very much for your